In totally, utterly, absolutely normal times, these transitions are already hard. I don't envy you taking these first tentative steps out of college and into a landscape littered with so many imponderables, on top of America's already overflowing inbox, jammed with stuff we really have to talk about, but seem unwilling to sit still long enough to have a serious conversation about. Fortunes of a size and number unimaginable in the history of the world were made in this country in the last year. Many were made even more fabulous by being in pandemic business. At the same time, millions of families were working flat out, as hard as they could, and found their work just didn't pay enough. Young people are not just sliding the timelines for major life milestones, but seriously considering whether they'll ever happen for them. For instance, considering never having children, while thanking their Gen X parents and Boomer grandparents for leaving them a world that doesn't seem like a particularly promising place to start a family, to even contemplate a long-term future. Scientists with greater and greater urgency delivered new data sets every week about the volume of water melting off of glaciers, about the acidity of the world's oceans, saltwater incursions making crowded, hungry Bangladesh a tougher place to farm. Farmers in Guatemala, after another year of unreliable rain, simply put their tools down and start walking toward the US border. Migratory birds are dropping out of the sky, starving in mid-flight, because the insects that they've gorged themselves on to provide the energy for their intercontinental journeys since time immemorial have in fact hatched weeks earlier and already moved on, and there's nobody to eat. Much closer to home, people just trying to get over, just living their modest lives. Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd became names heard not only in every corner of this country, but suddenly across the world. They never wanted to be those people. They would have much preferred you lived your entire lives and never heard their names, much less said their names. Our simmering national arguments turned nasty. Well, even nastier. And it gave us a frightening, unforgettable 2020. We've got deadlocked politics and unsettled scores, and America seems to be a pretty snarly place right about now. Just a few weeks before you started your first classes here in Farmville, torchlit marchers chanted, "You will not replace us," as they marched just up the road in Charlottesville. And then, more ominously, "Jews will not replace us." In back alleys of the internet, Americans meet to mutter dark fantasies to each other about the great replacement, amping up their anxiety about the day later this century when Americans of European ancestry become a plurality of us rather than the majority they've been since this country was founded. And instead of being ready to lean into that future, they're filled with fear and anxiety and dread, making it look like a sure bet that the next 25 years between today and that demographic milestone, Virginia Dare 2.0, will be contentious and uncomfortable instead of transformative and exciting, and in the end, and I promise you, just fine. 2010 was the first year more children whose forebears came to this country from Africa, Asia, and Latin America rather than Europe were born in America's hospitals. And it's happened every year since. Those kids are in middle school now. They'll be coming to Longwood in just 7 years. You, just a few years ahead of them, are, according to the numbers, already more accustomed to that more mixed America. You're more ready than your parents were. It's the place you'll be workers and parents and citizens and leaders. You will stand in the way of this country giving in to its worst impulses. You will remind us of our best traditions and our highest ideals. You will have to live lives that prove there's a better way of figuring out when race matters, when it has mattered, and when it doesn't, because God knows we haven't managed it yet, and we can't keep on doing what we've been doing. You will have to be creative and bold and risk-taking and serious, because none of this stuff is easy. And it's not even because you necessarily want to be any of those things. I get it. The generations that came before you picked all the low-hanging fruit, pushed off reckoning with America's place in the world, delayed making tough decisions about the climate and repairing the bridges and modernizing the electric grid. This country was so prodigiously powerful and rich for so long that we started acting like it was the way things were just supposed to be, the natural state of things, rather than a privilege that had to be fought for and earned and won over and over, generation after generation. We have today in our pockets computers that can in an instant tell you more about more things than was ever possible in the history of the world, and it's making us dumber. Because at the same time, allegation and assertion and feelings are crowding out facts, and believe me, you don't want to live in a country run on feelings. Sometimes a people does the hard things right when they have to be done. Sometimes a people can do the right things right away. Right now, right at this moment, we are starting to look like the can't-do people. We have had such a hard time making common cause that we are going to have to get to work doing some of these necessary things only because at long last there's no other choice. And I get it. Your families are going to get you to brunch later today and you're already going to have a ton on your plate. I'm sorry. In the past few years, I've taught undergraduates. In a few more months, I'll be heading back into the classroom while I continue work on my next book. Putting down today's young adults is the cheapest shot and one of the laziest in American culture, and you hear it all the time. Graduates, are you with me? Don't you hear it all the time? And it's so wrong. When I spend time with my students, with my own kids' friends, talk to them about their work, what they want, what they think, what they're excited about, I never worry whether we're going to be all right. When I did brown bags with my students, I walked away from the give and take sure that all the put-down artists just couldn't be talking about the same generation of Americans I'm meeting. The dark moments I have come not from any worries about your ability to join me and your parents and your neighbors in helping to set the world right. The dark moments only come from reflecting on the massive size of the tasks ahead. How will we meet the rising aspirations of millions of people in parts of the world just getting richer now, allowing them, encouraging them to become richer still, while not doing it in the carbon-intense and often wasteful way that previous generations did? How will we provide education to our children here in America that doesn't vary widely based on how wealthy you are or how much school your parents finished, just reproducing the inequality of today in tomorrow's Americans? We don't yet know, and we may not know for some time, what kind of mark gets left on you by graduating now. Socially, economically, politically. But one of the most worrying aspects of this time is the war on truth itself. It's May 15th. It's May 15th, and the struggle to misstate, retell, obscure the realities, not of what happened 100 years ago, but what happened on January 6th, are fully underway, with elected officials trying out erasure and fog and smoke and disingenuousness to say that what you saw happen on live TV didn't really happen. That the people who told us who they were really weren't those people. That instead other non-existent forces committed those crimes. Or that they weren't really crimes at all. And I only pick on that example because it's a recent one, and the attempt to rewrite reality is happening right now, in real time. We can watch it. But there are countless other examples. Reality is not only reality when it's convenient. Reality is not only reality when we like it. The truth is not only the truth when it's comfortable or reassuring. I've spent my whole adult life trying to figure out, trying to find out what's true and then tell people so they'll understand the world that's really waiting for them when they open their front door. And in more than 40 years in the news business, I have never seen in a free country, in a democratic country, a war on truth like the one underway right now. In the late years of the Soviet Union, the people of that vast country knew their government lied to them every day, shut down, blocked, suppressed alternative sources of information. So they came to rely on each other and on an increasingly bold underground press to try to piece together a vision of their country and the rest of the world as it really was. Today in the United States, we individual citizens stand in front of a fire hose with a tablespoon and run into the arms of people who assure us they will help us make sense of an endless cascade of stuff. But those people have interests. Boy, do they have interests in shaping our conclusions. People upset about President Trump no longer being on Twitter mutter darkly about George Orwell in 1984, but I think they're missing the bigger picture. As Professor Neil Postman reminded us in his brilliant and prophetic Amusing Ourselves to Death, we are not only on the verge of Orwellian control of reality. Postman said we feared 1984, but what we really got was Brave New World. Here's what he said. What Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read them. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned out in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture. I know I've been laying on the assignments pretty heavy this morning, but you've got one more to add to saving the country and saving the planet, and that is saving the truth. In many ways, it's the most important assignment of all because the first two are only possible when you can do that one, when you can know what the truth is. The hard part is you've got to do all these things while also building for yourselves and those around you terrific lives, enriched and deepened by the educations you've just got. You didn't go to 4 years of trade school. There's nothing wrong with trade school, but you came here. You made your way through the precious core curriculum, not just to be able to recite a set of facts, but also to drink deeply from some of the best thinking of the last couple of thousand years. I know you've got to get a job, eventually. I know your guests here today are thinking about that too. But your times have to fit like a puzzle piece into the story of the world. You don't get to pick the times that you grow up in. You don't get to pick the times that you become an adult in. They pick you, and you've got to make the best of it. Your lives have to make sense to you. You've got multiple lenses now because you've joined the sisterhood and brotherhood of educated people. You've got multiple lenses through which to decipher challenging and confusing times. Sure, ready to earn a living, but also ready to make a life. My wish for you is that your Longwood education is constantly echoing in your head in new situations, in new settings, amidst new challenges. That the things you learned here will not be forgotten, but only make more sense to you in the coming years. There is now a rudder on your boat. You've been given the tools to be head up, eyes forward, wide awake, in an unpredictable and challenging time. But it doesn't have to sound so ponderous. Light up every room you're in. Don't be bored and don't be boring. Be salt, be bread, be light, be a gift to everyone you meet. I hope your time here has helped you see your way to having a soul that in May 2021 is in pretty good shape. Because when times are tough, having your soul in good working order is going to get you through times of no money, much better than money is going to get you through times of soul sickness. Believe me.